Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I'm your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Kumar Dattatreyan. Kumar is the founder and CEO of Profit Sensei. Profit Sensei provides businesses from startup to scale up, one-on-one business coaching to help them add 100K to their bottom line in as little as 6 months. Kumar is also the founder and president of Agile Meridian, which consults with larger organizations to integrate Agile into the business model. In addition to his businesses, Kumar is the host of the podcast Meridian Point, the go-to destination for all things agile and project management. You can find Kumar by searching Kumar Dattatreyan on LinkedIn or emailing him at kumar@profit-sensei.com or by visiting his website, profit-sensei.com or agilemeridian.com. Hello, Kumar. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited. And to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Kumar?
Wow, that's a big question. It's meant different things at different stages of my life. I started out my career in restaurants, and I used to run restaurants. I was one of the youngest general managers for various chains in my 20s, and success for me then looked like managing a $10 million restaurant and ensuring that it was profitable and ensuring that all the people were happy and ensuring the customers were happy. And as I grew out of restaurants, I had young kids at home, and restaurants and young kids don't really mix that well. You're not home that much, and got into IT. My education was in computer science. I success then looked like, being the best developer I could be, and then being the best manager of development teams that I could be, and that's where I learned all about agile and lean systems thinking, and it's interesting because lean and agile, I was practicing that in restaurants, even though I didn't realize it, because you really have to be nimble and adaptable when you're running a restaurant. Customers, they come in, if they're not happy with their food, then they not only let you know, but they let 10 of their friends know. Hey, don't go to Kumar's restaurant. It's not very good. So you have to be very adaptable and very customer focused and customer centric, and those things are what I took to my middle management days. And so success then to me was really excelling as a manager, as a leader, and helping my team be as successful as they could be. And then I left that and went into consulting and opened my own firm. Um, and for me, at that point in my career, this is about 15 years ago, success was really making a go of it on my own, which was new to me. It was scary. It was really a scary proposition. I've always had the security of having a job and a steady paycheck, and this was relying on my skills and my ability to make my clients happy. And so success then was really about being successful as a businessman and having a more holistic view on how businesses should be run and all the things that come along with it, all the failures that come along with it. And I want to say this is really important, I think, to me anyway, is you can't have success without failure. And so I've failed a lot, and I'm still failing today. And it's okay to fail as long as you can learn from those failures and build upon them. And I just formed Profit Sensei, maybe 6 months ago, and that's a new effort, a new endeavor. My existing company, Agile Meridian, is focused on medium to large companies, large firms. And over the last couple of years, I've been focusing more on small firms. And so this company is really focused on helping them be successful, as successful as they can be. A long-winded answer. Hopefully that
No, I
didn't
I
bore
love
you.
I love that because I think it's so important too, and really why the show was created and why it's called Achieving Success is because success can change throughout life. And I really think that the way you demonstrated what success meant in different areas of your life at different moments in time, in different roles, really
Mhm.
plays into how that shaped where you are today. And
Yeah.
I think it's so important sometimes to realize that not only can success change over time, but what you looked like and what you thought success was in one moment in time and how to achieve that shaped that experience, right? Working in, uh restaurants and what you looked at as success at that point probably shaped how you went and navigated that part of your career. And then as you transition into the next and your success goals change, not only did that change for that role, but you took things like you mentioned from the restaurant business and what success had looked like in that moment in time and said, okay, this is what I was doing. This is how I looked at the failures. This is how it's changed. Now I'm shaping what success looks like to me in this way, in this moment in time. So I think that's really important. Before we go any further, though, because we are going to dive into how really agile and project management and lean and those things can really be applied to any business, any industry you're working in, and the importance of them. I want to dive in for our listeners to really go over and ask you what agile is within project
Mhm.
management and why is it not just another buzzword we're all hearing, but why is it so important to implement agile into a project or business model itself?
Mm. Yeah, that's another question that a lot of people wonder about, and a lot of people have asked, and agile being a buzzword and so on. It's really, it's if you think about agile, it's really about common sense approaches to how you do your work. At home, when you're, just as an analogy, when you're cooking a meal or washing the dishes, you're always going to look for better ways to do that, hopefully, right? So you don't repeat the same mistakes again. I remember when I used to mow the yard, I would think about the best pattern to apply to mowing the yard so that not only does the yard look nice and all the lines are clean, but I got done in the quickest, shortest time possible. Agile is really just about that. It's about thinking about how you do your work, planning your work, doing the work, and then checking to see how you did the work so that the next time you do similar work, you can do it better, right? And so it's an adaptable framework for any type of work. And Agile has been around for a long time. The U.S. government was using Agile methods back in the 50s. Now, they didn't call it that. They call it iterative and incremental development. And all it was software developers working in short iterations, meaning 1 or 2 day iterations. They would develop something, they would test it out, they would make sure it worked, and then they would develop the next thing, whatever the next thing is, and they would just build on those successes. And it was codified and called Agile in 2001. Agile Manifesto was created by 17 or so really software people that said, hey, there's got to be a better way to think about how we do our work and share that with the world. And that's where the manifesto came about. But by that point, agile methods and nimble methods and iterative methods were in use for 50 years. So it's been around for a long time. And so if you think about agile, it's really about just making sure you're making continuous small improvements to whatever it is that you do.
And I think that's so important because whether we do it and call it agile or we make these improvements and make the conscious effort to take note on what we're doing and change accordingly, we are doing agile and we are doing project management. We just don't always think about it in those terminology and call it what it is. We're like, okay, yeah, I have to change this to make it better, or I have to do this task better. So when you talk to individuals and really show them, "Hey, this is you're doing agile now. You're just not looking at it that way." Or having a discussion with an individual about the power of agile and what is that like for you? Really sharing with someone, hey, you're doing it. You're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, let's get this into motion.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because I've had so many of those conversations with people where, they wanna learn about what Agile is, they wanna use it in their process. And, I'll give you an example. So I was consulting with a company, and this department is a research department. They do a lot of research, and the lady who was running the research department was explaining how they do their research, and it seemed very iterative. They do research, and then they have to sort of incubate that research and get it approved, and they iterate through the research. And so when she was describing this to me and saying, she really wants to try to use Scrum, which is a
Mhm,
very popular agile framework, I said, "Well, you're sort of already doing agile," and I won't say her name. Really what you're using is something called Kanban. You're actually doing it. You just are not visualizing it. You're not sharing the progress maybe in a way that you would if you were using Kanban correctly. And so she was very intrigued. She's like, "Really? I'm doing agile?" And so we did that. So we visualized her work process, her workflow using a tool, coached her staff, her and her staff, and they were able to make visible the research that they were conducting and
mhm,
what stage the research was in. In fact, she came up with the stages and she modeled it after the stages of human development, from toddler to, or actually newborn to toddler to young child to young adult to I don't know accomplished maestro of whatever it was. And so the research moved across these stages, and she just made it more visible. And so in this example, she was already doing things in a more agile, nimble way. She just wasn't taking getting the full benefit of it because she wasn't making it visible. She wasn't Her staff wasn't didn't know what stage of development the research was in, and when could it be considered done, or when should it be abandoned, right? And that realization, those few small tweaks, made her and her team so much more productive.
and sometimes that's exactly it. It's really making the transparency
Yeah.
the key function because so many people sometimes are already doing things like we were just talking about. Sometimes they're not, but when they are, there's pieces of it that's there and there's pieces that are missing. And it can be as small as transparency that can make all the difference in your agile line and your implementation of things. For
Yes.
you, when you have discussions with individuals, and now I'm going to kind of flip the question just a little bit. You now have those individuals where you're talking to and they're implementing agile without even realizing it. And then you're trying to explain to them how they're doing it and how those tweaks can be made. What happens when you have a conversation with someone who really just doesn't know as much about project management, agile, the different things, and you are explaining to them, okay, this is what agile is, this is how it plays a role in your business process or your job
Mhm.
task. What are some of the things you try to highlight with them of
Yeah.
the ability to really boost
Mhm.
a project, a business, and revenue, all those things?
Yeah, great question. The example I gave you earlier, the research team, that team already had a culture of experimentation, and iteration. So they were iterating through the research, they were sharing the results with each other, even though it wasn't visible to the whole organization, it was visible within the team. And so it was really easy for
Mhm.
me to come in and say, "Hey, you guys are doing awesome. You just need to make these small little tweaks, and off you go." Oftentimes in organizations, the culture isn't ready for something like Agile, Scrum, Kanban, Lean, whatever you want to call it. And it's not to say that project management is good or bad. It isn't. I know a lot of project managers that are very agile and do things in a very iterative fashion. But in a lot of companies, uh, work is managed in projects, and the culture in the company is such that it's very hierarchical. And so managers are expected, they're rewarded, their salaries and their bonuses are based on how they can get their teams to produce more work. And so their whole value proposition is I am valuable if I can tell people what to do. I'm the expert, and so I need to provide them with guidance, with
Mhm.
task management. I need to make sure that they're always busy, because if they're not busy, then it's going to hit my potential bonus. Because again, I'm being evaluated on how my team performs. And so I have to make sure they perform to their fullest. And so the equation is a little flipped, right? Where the research team was already agile. They understood that the people doing the research, were the most important components of that process. They had the knowledge, they had the skills to be able to do the research and to assimilate the data and to produce the reports and whatever, whatever. And so the manager really had to just point them in the right direction and they would do the work. She didn't have to manage their work. As opposed to this example where the manager is being rewarded to manage every aspect of these people's work. And so in situations like that, agile, lean, scrum, kanban is a hard sell. Now, the people that are doing the work, they're used to be told what to do. Come into work every day and it's like, okay, I'm going to wait until my manager gives me my tasks, right? Until then, I'm going to, look at my TikToks or whatever, do something else. And the manager is like working hard, figuring out what tasks are needed for that day or that week, and goes out and simplifying this a lot. So all you managers out there that don't be offended. This is just a gross simplification of what sometimes I see happen. Right? They produce all their tasks and they assign them. Okay, Olivia, you're going to do this, and Kumar, you're going to do that, and so on and so forth. And so then the worker bees they go off and do their thing. Right? This sort of Tayloristic management model, Tayloristic thinking came out of the 1900s, manufacturing, right? The people were hired to work on factory floors. They didn't have to have a lot of knowledge. They just didn't have to know how to turn a bolt or pound a rivet. Or if they didn't, they were trained to do that. And so a lot of times in today's world, managers treat workers as if they're assembly line workers, right? And they say, okay, you do this job and I will tell you when to do it and when you should be done and you go do that. And so for that kind of a mindset, it's much harder to have agile work because again, managers are still going to want to tell their people what to do. Agile is the very antithesis, I can't say the word, the opposite of that, which is workers have the knowledge. You got to trust them to do the job and allow them to fail so they can learn. Right? And so managers have to let go of that control and start trusting the people to do the work. And people, the workers, they may not be ready for that because they're used to getting instructions. And so it's a delicate balancing act. And that's where I come in and people like me come in to try to coach these folks into moving in that direction over some period of time. Does
And
that
I
help?
think yes, and I think one of the things you really portrayed in that is the fact that it's changing a mindset.
Yeah.
Being a integrating agile into what you're doing, whether it's a role function, a company, it really all plays a role in the mindset, how things have to shift and transparency has to shift to really get the outcomes you want. In long run, it's a lot more productive for everyone, a lot better outcomes at times. But you have to be able, as you said, for those managers, relinquish some of the control, trust the employees. The individuals underneath the manager have to understand what it takes, be able to use their voice sometimes to say,
Mhm.
okay, this isn't working. How do we pivot? How do we integrate a little better into each step moving forward as well? And one of the things you are really doing is working with smaller organizations, individuals, one-on-one coaching. And you started this, as you mentioned earlier, months ago as a different business offering from the company you'd founded years ago. And for you, why is it important to also work with individuals and building Profit Sensei to work with those individuals of smaller organizations,
Yeah.
of founders. to help them grow to that 100K, like you said, in under
Yeah.
6 months and really
Well,
see that agile implemented at that size of an organization as well.
yeah. You're on a roll, Olivia. You keep asking me great questions, like one after the other. It's amazing. So Profit Sensei, as you mentioned, it's more for small businesses, right? So I'd say from startup to scale up, and I think you mentioned that in the intro. Agile is been around for a long time. It's the 23rd year since the manifesto was written. Scrum has been around for 30 years. Kanban and lean systems thinking has been around for 40, 45 years. Been around for a long time. So companies are starting to, I wouldn't say move away from it. They're getting more mature with it, right? And they are devising their own frameworks that work for them in the company environments. So large companies have been doing it for a long time. They figured out what works for them, and they're moving along with it. And so for the agile coaches out there, there's less of these medium to large companies to coach because they have a lot of expertise they've built up over time. And that's a healthy thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. And so over the past, Profit Sensei has not been around that long, but I have been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching with executives, with leaders. I'm a International Coaching Federation credentialed coach. And so I focus on leadership coaching, and I've been doing that for several years now. And a lot of leaders, especially of small companies, people form companies for a reason, right? Because they are really good at something. I'm a dentist, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a restaurateur, whatever it is. I'm really good at that craft, right? And so they form a dentist office or a chiropractic office or whatever. They're great practitioners. But when it comes to running a business, that's a whole another ball game. And so a lot of business owners, leaders in their own right, really good people, smart people, struggle to make their business successful. Yes, they maybe pays all the bills. Yes, maybe they're surviving, but they're not thriving, especially when you consider the age we live in, the age of AI, right? It is disrupting every industry except for maybe the trades, because you still need people to do plumbing and carpentry and dental work and chiropractic work and doctors and so on and so forth. So I'm thinking, all right, how do this show is all about achieving success, right? What's my next wave of success? Where's that going to come from? Right. And so for me, I have this vast trove of experience helping medium to large companies be successful and their people be successful. How can I translate that to help the small business owner? And so that's why I founded this company, Profit Sensei, which is really focused on the small business. How do I help these small business owners become more holistic and agile thinkers, right? How do I help them understand how to grow their company, how to grow their business? And so that's what the company is really focused on. And I have the use of this proprietary software that identifies up to 40 strategies that help small businesses improve their profit. And I can virtually guarantee that most businesses will increase their profit by 100,000 in their bottom line in the first 6 months. I haven't had an experience where that hasn't happened yet in my 6 months.
Well, but that just shows too, it's about, and we talk about this with agile of trial and error sometimes, but when you're delivering the results and you're taking the time to implement the right processes and understanding and knowing where your expertise lays, it doesn't always take the 6 months to get there or a year to understand that you have something that you can deliver in a way that is best for the group you're trying to serve. And sometimes that's the power. It's taking all the expertise from your different environments, from the things you've been doing for years, and being able to implement that and share it. And for you, going off that too, what is a few things people who are starting to think about agile, who want to implement it into their role, into their organization, what is one or two things people can start thinking about when it comes to agile and trying to like question whether it is good or how to implement it into what they're doing?
Yeah, the role continues. Another great question. So, what can people do to implement agile into their daily lives? I've done some talks on this. I call it the personal Kanban, and it starts just as simple as doing it for your own life, right? Your own work, your schedule, and one of the a premise of agile is to limit the amount of things that you work on. So if you're working on 10 things, those 10 things are going to get a tenth of your attention, tenth of your time. And actually switching between those 10 things also costs time. So chances are you won't make progress on any of those 10 things. They'll just sort of lay there dormant, static, and you will get frustrated because, oh my God, these things aren't progressing. What's going on? And so it's just implementing Agile for yourself would be to focus on the one or two things that are most important to you and get them done. So instead of starting a bunch of things, stop starting and start finishing some of the things that are most important. So that would be the one thing I would say is stop starting new things until you finish something that you've been working on for a while. And if it's not important to you anymore, get rid of it, right? Because we all have a lot of clutter in our lives, whether it's physical clutter in your office or wherever you're working, or mental clutter, all the stuff that's in your head that is competing for your attention. So sift through that mental clutter and figure out what is the most important thing for you over the next month, 3 months, 1 year, and focus on it. Because if you have the focus, then you will get it done.
And I
Two
love how you
things.
oh, go on,
Sorry.
go on.
The
Keep
second
sharing.
thing is to learn. It's just to learn more about agile and agile methods. And a great way to do that would just be to join some communities, join some meetups, and learn more about how agile has been used and how it's evolving because it is evolving. It is changing like everything else. We host a community at Agile Meridian. You're welcome to join ours. It's completely free. There's lots of resources for you to learn.
So the thing I wanted to bring up here as well, and something you touched upon, is getting rid of that clutter
Yeah.
and understanding what's important, finishing those tasks. So for you, what are some of the ways you get rid of that clutter? Whether it's an everyday clutter that starts populating, right, or those weekly clutters, whether it's in an office or in your filling up your brain space, or how do you navigate that clutter?
Yeah, great. Another boy. Put me on the spot here because I'm always struggling to stay focused. I will admit that I am a bit of a squirrel. I get distracted quite easily and go run off and chase the shiny whatever thing that's in front of me. And so for me, it's really important for me to stay focused. And the only way I can do it is to maintain a personal Kanban where I review it every morning, first thing in the morning, that lays out my tasks for that day, for that week, and I do a cleaning. Is this still important to me? What progress have I made? If I have not made any and marked it really important, I need to reevaluate. Is it still important to me? Right? It's okay to make a change in your priorities, but there needs to be a reason for that change. And so I do that every morning. I do that at the end of every week. I kind of review what I've accomplished that week towards my goals. And I do a little mini retrospective, which is a great technique that agile teams use. I use it for myself. What did I accomplish last week? What am I going to do next week? I plan for the next week in higher level terms, right? I'm going to make so many sales calls, or I'm going to join so many networking groups, or I'm going to speak at so many events. I'm going to do some training. I'm going to whatever it is, right? And so it's important that for me that I do that so I can stay focused. Because if I don't, I'm going to get distracted. That's just my nature.
And part of that I love how you were transparent in that is understanding that some of us like like are like those squirrels where you see they uh not and you gotta run after it. And then once you get it, it's paying attention. It's understanding who you are as an individual as
Right.
well and your birth process. One thing you mentioned that I do too is the week before, I lay out everything in meetings are always on my Google Calendar. However, I will still handwrite down every meeting and all my tasks in a written calendar. And then I will update it as the week goes, add things, potentially take things away if
Mhm.
priority changes. But for me, it's having that written down that I can go to and go, okay, in today, what has to get done? Where do the priorities lay? And then, as you mentioned, throughout the day or the week up, start to change things. Morning, look at those things, revisit it because the day before could have gotten so busy that
Yeah.
you need to wake up fresh, go, okay, yesterday's behind us. What is on the agenda for today? And
Yeah.
remind yourself.
Yeah. A lot of times I'll schedule time just for specific things, like, schedule an hour to go through my email, 'cause I tend to get distracted looking at email and looking at this and that, and so if I have that time set aside, then I won't get distracted the rest of the day, right, with email, because I know I'm gonna look at my email from 1 to 2 every day, and I'm gonna answer all my emails then, I'm gonna, send out new emails, whatever I need to, but I don't look at email. I try not to the rest of the time, the rest of the day. I might look at it again at the end of the day just to make sure that I haven't missed anything, but that's what I try to do, and for the most part, it works.
Well, and I could say too, we all know, you and I especially know because our email gets bombarded, but it can take an hour plus to go through your emails, especially, you have multiple emails. I have multiple emails. For example, I have the Achieving Success email, my personal email, the
Right.
emails for the nonprofits I run. And it's like going through all those, kind of to your point before, is when you're switching between tasks or even within the same task, different pages you might have to, that all takes time.
Yeah.
So going through emails, I'm always like, okay, I keep up to date. I check do a thorough check twice a week, um, sometimes 3 times a week, depending on the week, right? And then
Mhm.
throughout the week, I'll do grays. Okay, delete those scams when I'm walking somewhere, those non-important emails. M But no matter how often you do that, sometimes you wake up on that Wednesday morning and you have that brick of time of that 30 minutes, hour, and you go, wait, that really took an hour and there's more to get done because 'cause you're responding, you're doing all these things.
Right. Right, exactly. It's a constant battle. You know, if you just have one email box to maintain, lucky you, it's great, or 1 or 2, maybe personal and at work. For me, just like you, I have many multiple boxes to maintain and keep track of, and so it's I have to really stay on top of it, and I have to devise systems to do that. And if any of the listeners, your listeners, are in the same boat, whether you have 1 or 2 boxes to maintain or several, it's always good to have a plan in place. And so that's another thing that's, through my years of working with agile teams is to spend some time planning. It doesn't mean that you spend all your time planning, but enough so that you can be prepared for the inevitable change that comes along, right? That kind of, messes up with your plan.
And I think that's so important too, in the aspect of there are things we just can't control, and there are gonna be those pivots, those other priorities that come up the night before
Mhm.
the agenda you already have or in that morning when you're reprioritizing things. And when you work with individuals and those business owners, what are some of the ways you try to walk them through handling some of those, new tasks that might come up the night before and really making sure you have your agile in place while changing your mindset, but understanding other things can populate and how to be agile enough to
Yeah.
allow for the change?
With any client that I work with, whether it's a small business or a larger business, a team within a larger business, a leadership team, whatever it is. What I try to do is help them to develop some capability in managing their own work, right? So part of that is establishing a cadence. So, the individual and I will meet on a cadence. We don't deviate from the cadence. We always meet at the same time, same day, every week. And what that does is kind of like a heartbeat. It's a rhythm, right? And so the cadence establishes that rhythm. And the work that happens between our meetings is the work that the client has to do. Of course, they can always call me for help, but it's an opportunity to connect. What do we accomplish? What are we going to plan to do in the next week, next couple of days, whatever the cadence interval is, and then you go do. And what do we learn from what we do, right? So establishing the cadence, synchronizing with the client, the team, whatever it may be, is really important so that everyone is on the same page. You're aligning. You can consider the cadenced meetings an alignment session to make sure that whoever you're working with, whether or if you're working on a project, that you come together on a cadence and you align. Are we still heading in the right direction? Do we need to make any changes? Right? Those are all questions that you should be asking yourself. So I forget your question. What do I do with my clients, right? My one-on-one
Yeah,
clients?
your
Yeah.
your process with them too.
Yeah.
I didn't add that part, but let's
Yes.
while we're on it, what is your process with your clients?
So with Profit Sensei, I always start with a 45-minute to an hour assessment. So think of Profit Sensei as a business doctor. All right. And so that first session is a diagnostic. It's looking under the hood of the business to see how the business is functioning. What are the costs? What are the fixed costs? What are the variable costs? What are the sources of revenue and income into that business? What's the marketing look like? What do the employees look like? I mean, not look like, like what do they look like, but how many are there, and do you have enough? And is it hard to attract the right talent and that kind of thing? So looking under the hood to see, okay, how is the business functioning? Is it on life support? Is it barely functioning? Is it doing well, but got to get a handle on the costs? And so that first 45-minute to an hour assessment will identify that 100,000 in potential additional revenue in that business. And it's interesting. The smaller the business, the more potential there is to grow it, because again, smaller the business, a lot of these strategies haven't been put in place yet. They're just getting started, right? And so putting these strategies in place will exponentially increase their profit and their top line sales. And so the process is really to analyze the business, do a diagnostic, prepare a report, provide that to the business owner, and then embark on a plan. Okay, how are we going to actually enact this plan so that we can start to reap the rewards, both increasing the top line revenue and improving the bottom line profit. And so that plan is what comes next, and that's where the cadence comes in, because the plan is only as good as the day it's written, right? The proof comes in the execution. So we got to execute the plan, and so it's really thinking about how are they going to do that? How are they going to implement the steps in the plan? Whether it's improving conversions, customer conversions through the marketing that they do, improving the marketing that they do. Maybe it's not as effective as it should be or could be. Whatever it is, it's starting to execute that plan and then meeting on a regular cadence so that the business owner and his team, his or her team, and myself, we're all aligned on the mission.
Mhm. And
Does that
alignment is so important, like we've been discussing throughout this whole show, is really making sure communication is there, transparency is there, alignment is there. And that being said, Kumar, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Oh my God, there's so many ways to get in touch with me. Just look for me on LinkedIn, Kumar Dattatreyan, and you can get in touch with me there. My email, I have multiple, Kumar at profit-sensei.com or Kumar at agilemeridian.com. I'm on YouTube. I'm on podcasts. If you just look on YouTube for Meridian_Point, you will find my YouTube channel. And podcast is the same name, Meridian Point. What else? Yeah, I think that should be enough. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere.
You are everywhere, but that is the amazing part of you is you are accessible. People can
Yes,
access you and communicate. So that being said, thank you, Kumar, for all of your insight today.
you're welcome.
I really enjoyed having you on, and a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is agile thinking is about how you can do your work, doing the work, reflecting on the work to do it the best possible way and change it accordingly for the next time, the next round, really being able to grow and change along with the task, as well as limit the number of things you are working on. Like Kumar said earlier, if you're working on 10 things, you can only give that one task a tenth of your attention. So, really identifying what is important, where the time needs to lay, how much time, and really limiting those tasks that your brain is powering and thinking about at one time so you can really perform at the best level you can and get those things done. Because I even get annoyed with myself sometimes when I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just want to get it done. And if I know I'm not going to have enough time or I'm going to end up pivoting, I won't even start it. And that's an important aspect as well. Stop starting and start finishing. I love when Kumar said that because it's so true. You can start as many things as you want, but what are the things you're finishing? And how many of those things that you started are you actually finishing? As well as it is okay to make a change. Understand that changes are okay. It's a part of life, it's adapting. Be okay with it, but understand why you're making that change as well. And
Yeah,
last but not least, plan so you can handle the unknown when that unknown comes up. It isn't just planning and then having to always stick by it, but it's planning so that when the unknown comes up, you know how much time you have, where you can allocate that time. Maybe personnel you can allocate towards that task. It's all about planning for those things while also being adapted to the unknown. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Kumar Dattatreyan. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.